Growing up, parents got me a guitar. Said you could do anything, kid, you could go far. You could be the president, fireman, race cars. The sky's the limit, kid, so shoot for the stars. So I strummed that guitar every day. Found a passion for music, never went away. I joined a couple bands and played a few shows. Tried to impress the girl in the front row. But soon enough, everything starts to change. As you grow up, nobody treats you the same. They try to take your future and make it real safe. You could be a doctor, accountant, or something sane. But yo, whatever happened to the sky was the limit. I fell in love with music, never thought it was a gimmick. I worked so hard on every tune and every single lyric. My whole identity depended on being artistic. Now you wanna strip that away, so you feel okay? Cause if I make it to the top, what does that really say? That you shouldn't have given up, that you made the mistake? But if I fail, you feel much better about picking your lane, right? Yeah, things are gonna get better real soon. Yeah, I'ma just do me, you just do you. I swear it's gonna get better real soon. Don't let anyone tell you what you should do. I got a clear view, we're gonna make it soon. Just keep pushing through. You're what you got to lose. You're what you got to lose. You're what you got to lose. Just keep pushing through. Cause what you got to lose. 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 I won't give up, I won't back down. Till the line 6 feet underneath the deep ground. I won't give up, I won't back down. There's nobody stopping me now. I won't give up, I won't back down.
Our remote just fell.
I won't give up, I won't back down. There's nobody stopping me except for me now.
How's everybody doing? So there is a very small chance this is my last episode. I'm hoping not, but we'll find out because the copyright strike, I disputed it. I sent it up. Let's see if it disappears tomorrow or not. But assuming you don't see me tomorrow on some other platform doing something completely different, we have a very interesting night tonight. We're going to do Antony Cummins. He's talking about the soul in Buddhism. As many of you know, I studied Taoism for a very long time, but I'm familiar with Buddhism. And I was a practicing Taoist, just another way to put it. And I'm a martial artist, a lifelong martial artist. So I'm interested to hear what Antony Cummins says. Antony Cummins has written some of my favorite books. Well, translated some of my favorite books. I don't know, it's hard to say. They should be here, and I should have put them here, but I didn't. So, but let's just say that some of these could be his because he translates this kind of stuff. Oops. Anyway, but go check out his channel if you haven't checked it out. If you like Kema, if you like swordplay, if you like martial arts, if you like samurai, if you like ninja, he is the man. Okay, we're going to start with his. Then we're going to get into Michael Beverly's response to me. From that, we're then going to go into 2 other Michael Beverly videos. So hopefully it's going to be a huge Michael Beverly night, and we're going to begin off with some really good, solid Buddhism. What is the soul in non-Christian context? I like this conversation. I like this idea. So this is what we're doing right now. Let's get to it. Let me go find the video. I know, I'm never prepared. Okay, here we go.
In today's world, it seems to go without saying.
That is not the video that I just clicked. And I want to say a great shout out to Antony Cummins. I reached out to him, I think actually this morning, asking if it's okay if I do his video, if I do a commentary on his video on this stream, and he said yes. He said just send me the link. So really, for real, Antony Cummins is a great guy. He's written some of my favorite books. He knows more about ninjas than I ever will. So please subscribe to his channel and go buy one of his books. So let's do this. Here we go. Let's see. That is not Antony Cummins. That is a beach. There we go.
Right, guys, my problem with Buddhism. Welcome back to this playlist. We're not visiting this a while. My name's Antony Cummins, and today we're going to talk about
And don't forget, we did Buddhism Week, I think maybe about 2 months ago. There is a playlist. You can watch everything about Buddhism. We covered all the basics. So we will be doing that again. As you know, we go through all the religions. We do 1 week on just one religion at a time. Again, assuming no more copyright strikes, we will be continuing to do that.
Is there a soul? Excuse me, let me adjust the camera. Is there a soul? And is there a soul in Buddhism? And I'm looking forward to seeing your comments below.
So I, after a debate with Garmania, wanted to get a footing on the soul. It's actually part of the reason why I started my 360 book plan to read through all the church fathers in 360 books in 1 year. We're not done. We're not done with that book. We're not done with that list. I don't think I'm going to get there, but that's what we're doing. And I read everything on the soul I could find. I read over 12 books on the soul, all the major works, going from the earliest writings of ancient Greece all the way to what the modern idea of the soul is. It was very interesting. It had to do a lot with the mind, a lot to do with consciousness, a lot to do with identity. That's not what's happening in Buddhism when we're talking about the soul. So what is the soul? What is this thing that reincarnates and continues to exist after you're dead, after this life is over? What is gaining merits?
Oh, but before you quit, keyboard warrior, listen to it all. If you would like to help me get one of these.
And yes, normally I do fast forward it, and we do the little 5-minute jumps. We're not going to do that with this video. We're going to watch it. We're not going to watch all of it. I do want you to watch his video. We're going to watch a good 2 chunks of it, probably about this chunk here and then this chunk over here.
Behind you, or get a copy of Samurai Death Cult. That will help keep this channel going and keep me going, especially Book of Bushido on Audible. Guys, if you've got an Audible account, Book of Bushido, 1 credit.
I want to be very clear. I've been reading his stuff for a very long time. I've been doing martial arts for a very long time, and I've been doing both kendo and aikido for a very, very, very long time. So, yeah.
It gets me. Oh, millions. Right. So recently I've been discussing with my friends and with YouTube colleagues, is there a soul in Buddhism? Now, first of all, when we say Buddhism, we have to remember it's not one thing. When we say Buddhism, it's one word, but it doesn't represent one thing. So one strand of Buddhism will say one thing, and the next strand of Buddhism will say the next thing. And
there's also a great divide between the way Buddhism is practiced in different nations. So you have Indian Buddhism, you're going to have what I would call Chinese Buddhism, you know, Japanese Buddhism, and then you're going to have the different subsets in each nation. So whether you're, depending on what nation you're in, you're going to have a different flavor of Buddhism. So that's very important. If you ever get to go to China, go to some of the Buddhist temples there. It is amazing, but it is very different than the kind of, I don't have a better word for it, but the Orientalism of the older kung fu movies and older samurai flicks. It's very different. So what Buddhism is in each country, in each nation, in each region changes. And the books that are important to each one are very different. I remember one temple in China where it just had all the books, like all of it. It was amazing to have see all the writings of the Buddhist scriptures.
the idea is like, you know, they argue with each other, and you get greater vehicle Buddhism, lesser vehicle Buddhism, and they argue and everybody argues. So it isn't a case of Buddhism says this. You've got to be very clear with what you're saying. So is there a continuous identity that...
And my stepson is a Buddhist, by the way, and so is my mother-in-law.
...travels on after you die. Now, I'm going to use the word soul. Before any of you chock happy people jump on there, I'm not using it in the Christian term as an identifiable it's blue and it floats around and it goes to God. I'm just talking.
And that's go there. So you got the Christian concept, which is influenced a lot by the Greek, where the question is the soul part of the body or not part of the body? And you have the Protestant argument that the soul and the body are two separate things. And you have the Catholic and Orthodox argument that the soul and the body are one composite being. That's very different than what's going on here. That's not what we're talking about when we're talking about the soul. So when you read a lot of this stuff, I don't know if I have anything here. Let me see. So when you read a lot of this stuff, when you're reading, you'll see words that, because we're speaking English and we're reading a translation, we think it has certain context, certain meaning, but that's not the meaning or the context of the word here. So when you see soul or you see thought or you see void or any of these ideas, it's very, very different than the Christian thought, the Christian idea of the concept of the same thing. So that's a very important, and what he's acknowledging here is very, very true.
Stream or cosmic identity and all, it starts losing, we lose what we're on about. So we're English speakers and it's a soul. Where's your soul? Whether you believe in Christianity or not, we all have a soul in the English language, which is our identity that is non-observable. You can't observe it. It has no shape, no colour, no anything.
Some people used to call it the immutable self.
But it's what goes on after death to somewhere, something else. So you get a lot of non-duality in Buddhism, and the idea is that you are not you and I am not me, we are the same one, sort of sometimes hippie, sometimes this, and this idea of there is no me, there's no I, there's no self. I think it's Atman, there's no I here anywhere. I think therefore I am is not a philosophical statement in Buddhism. However, it's not that easy because it actually crops up a load of problems. And one of the number one problems is Buddhism can't really exist without a soul. Soul in the English term, not the Christian term. So why can't it? Simply because you can't become enlightened. But let me first tell you that a lot of Buddhists today, modern Buddhists, consider using the term conscious stream. Is there a conscious stream that goes on? Some people say, no, there isn't. It disintegrates and whatever reforms. It's not the same conscious stream. And then you get examples like, I'm not the same Antony I was 5 minutes ago. But I'd like to quash that. I really hate that. I am not the same person I am 5 minutes ago because...
One of my favorite... And I'm not sure if it's a translation that he took part of. There's in the Book of Five Rings, in the opening, you have Matamoto Musashi sitting. I think it's with the Buddhas or in the Buddhas. The way that it's worded about the Buddha, and the way that he's talking about martial arts and swords is this great. It's more than just spiritual here. It's not, it's not neo-paganism. It's not spiritualism. There's a concreteness, a realness to what's being described here about the soul and about the relationship of the soul to the Buddha in sword fighting, in sword play, in martial arts. So I just think that's amazing.
My toenails are growing out. I have improved some. No, you're you. You're just you that's improved. The reason being, if I go and stab someone and go to prison, I can't turn around with it and say, hey, I'm not the same one I was 5 minutes ago. Can I get off with it? I've baited another...
Sandals says, I kind of think if you make a copy of me, the copies don't think they are me. Or both think they are me, but don't think that the other copy is. I think that's incredibly true. And I think one of the concepts in Christianity where, and this is going to be Orthodox and traditional Christianity, where time doesn't matter to God because God's outside of time. So Jesus can just appear anywhere. After he incarnates, he can suddenly appear in the Old Testament. He can appear in the New Testament. It makes a mess of typology. So you have this later Protestant idea of Jesus being Melchizedek, and it's not a metaphor here. It's like being literally Melchizedek, not just a typological precursor. The concept of time in Buddhism is different because you're in nature, you're part of nature. So I feel like the cosmos, while cyclical, like in the Greek sense, I don't see the Buddha time traveling to change the past and the future. I don't see Buddha outside of time. I see the Buddha, well, out of reach of suffering, in enlightenment, in possibly. I mean, we're going to talk nirvana here, but still a creature of this world. So there's what the soul is doing in Buddhism is very different than what the soul is doing in Christianity. The soul is that divine part of you, that breath of life, that consciousness, that essence of you, the immutable part, the part that never changes, the energy that animates you in Christendom. I would say that the chi, the kai, the breath, the life in Buddhism, and now I'm being very heavily influenced here by Taoism. I can't deny that. I feel it's more subtle than what's happening in Christianity, and it's more physical. There's a tangibility to the soul in Buddhism and in Asian philosophy. Your soul has an effect on the world. It has an effect on things. It can touch things. It can move things. It can give you strength. It can give you power. You can draw energy from yourself. You can focus your energy into your actions. That's something that the soul doesn't do in Christianity. The soul is more an observer, a slave to your body, a slave to your sins. It's not really in charge. It's a victim. While in Buddhism, I think the soul is the rider on the horse. Your body is the elephant. Your rider is, or your mind is the elephant. The rider is the soul. While in Christianity, especially in traditional classical theology, I think the rider and the mind are one thing. So separating mind from consciousness becomes really complicated in Western thought. It becomes really complicated, and you have to come up with these different dichotomies. The dichotomy of the soul, whether it's one thing, one composite thing, two things, or three things. I don't think you have that problem in Buddhism. In Buddhism and in other Asian philosophies, you are your soul. The composite nature of yourself doesn't matter. Your body simply does not matter. Your discomfort does not matter. Because life is suffering and because all of this is transitory, there's no permanency to it. So it's a very different concept. Very different.
Tribe, I took the chieftain's head, and I was like, that's it, that's me. I'm running out round as a Neanderthal, right? Running around doing that. And then I arrive at the gate before samsara ends. I'm there. I'm realization. I've had realizations. I've had the big capital R realization, and I'm about to become capital E enlightened and leave samsara. How does that happen if I have not gone through the experiences? Because if it's not me over there, I cannot become enlightened. So every single Buddhist on the planet is walking towards the end of their life, and if they don't become enlightened before the end of their life, they're extinguished and their consciousness does not carry on. There even just doesn't go. There is no soul, doesn't carry on, and therefore you can't.
It's kind of similar to the Jewish idea of what happens to the soul after you die. So Jewish hell is very similar to Catholic purgatory, so much so that apologists get it confused all the time. In Jewish hell, everyone goes to Sheol, everyone goes to hell, and it's temporary. It's only for like 2 weeks, and while you're in there, if there's enough good of you left over, if what's burnt off isn't everything, if your sins and your transgressions and your cowardliness and all of that stuff, at the end of it, once it's gone, if there's still something of you left, whatever's left goes to heaven. And it's this constant purifying process where if you get to heaven and you start misbehaving, you go back to hell to get repurified. And it's just this constant process. And it's a 2-week process. It's very different than the idea of Christian hell. Christian hell is this permanent thing where, it's everlasting fire. Well, in the idea here in Judaism is it's temporary. It's a purifying process. And if you're so evil that there's nothing of you left, you go to oblivion. You simply don't exist. You die the death of death. You die the second death. I feel like in some versions of Buddhism, it's that process. It's reincarnation can only happen, or enlightenment can only happen, if there's something decent enough in you to survive, some type of thread, some type of life force that can continue on. And if that life force is so corrupted, if you've fallen back into yourself, if you've become more animal than human, there's no new life. You're just gone. You've ceased to exist. You've become something so corruptible, so transitory that you don't matter in the great scheme of things. And I think there's something there in the contrast between Judaism, Christianity, and Buddhism that is very interesting. And I have not delved into it. I've concentrated way too much on Taoism to concentrate, to really delve deep into what Buddhism is doing with the soul. But I think it's profound and incredibly interesting. And I'm glad that
which means it's
that Antony is talking about it.
Christianity is literally you've got one chance. You're either going up or you're going down. So Buddhism, without the soul, is Christianity, paradoxically. So that's a problem. So basically
Sandals, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to ignore you. I was deep into my thought and deep into what Antony was saying. Let me open up the chat. Give me a second, man. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. I'm sorry about that. Okay, so Sandals says, if the soul is unchanging, why do people do things that make it feel better, soothing the soul? Yes. I kind of don't believe in the soul, really. But if it's kind of like minds or personality, I think it kind of changes with your experience. And then Sandals says, I thought the Jews mostly had a view that the body is you, and when your body is fully burned and gone, you are gone. But I might be wrong, or probably they have a different views too. There are different Jewish sects and Jewish groups that have different ideas. I'm influenced a lot by the Kabbalistic ideas and a lot by the Sephardic ideas. That's me when it comes to my understanding of Judaism. I understand there are other branches of Judaism, other flavors that say very different things. All right, let's keep going.
Buddha cannot be enlightened if he did not have. And I'm sure he says, I remember my past lives as a tiger, as this and that. I'm sure, what document is that story from? Because all these Buddhist stories go around because we read modern Buddhist books. And the actual canon literature for Buddhism is so vast and expansive, and somebody argues this is that and this. The simple fact is nobody has any words from the Buddha that the Buddha wrote. Like Jesus wrote zero. Flat out. Too busy to write, getting enlightened. Get back. So you lot write about it when I'm gone. Yeah. There are no words from Buddha. They're only what we argue are his words and what we argue not. So it falls into a few categories.
I'm going to correct him on what he's about to say, even though I agree with what he's about to say. I just think he said it slightly. Either said it slightly wrong, or he got too excited and stumbled in his words. Stumbled in his words? Whatever.
We argue are his words. What we know are definitely not his words. So arguably, there are some words that are his words. There are some words that are not his words, but people pretend they are. And there are words that everyone agrees are not the Buddha's, but they are people who came after the Buddha.
So I would have said it this way. I would have said, there are words of the Buddha, sayings of the Buddha, that might be his. There are sayings of the Buddha that even if we're not sure they're his, we're okay with them. And then there's sayings that we know they're absolutely not. And I think that's true for Jesus. I think the sayings of Jesus, I'm really deep into John. Is it John Barton? Hold on. I think it's John Barton. It's really good. I don't always agree with Dan McCullum, but this book recommendation was an amazing book recommendation. I'm really happy I'm reading this. Hold on, let me see. What is it? John Barton. John Barton, A History of the Bible. When he gets into Q, chapter, I think we're already in chapter 11 or something like that. I don't know where the heck we are. Anyway, Q is the repository of the sayings of Jesus, if that's what Q is. Of course, it could be another mid-document. It could be the sayings of Jesus. But the sayings of Jesus, this document, this resource, this lost resource, Jesus didn't write them. This is just what we're pretty sure Jesus actually said. So when you're reading the Bible, if you get into source criticism and the textual critique of the Bible, especially the New Testament, some expressions are in all the Gospels. So we're pretty sure those are the sayings of Jesus. Then there are other sayings that might not actually be his, could be the author's writing, but we're okay with them. And then there's other things that we know Jesus never said, and so we call that apocryphal, we call it heretical. We label it as something else. Like there's no way, and it kind of comes with the way that we do things with the canon, first canon, primary canon, secondary canon, deuterocanon, and tertiary canon. And you get like these different authority levels of what Jesus said, to where here's stuff that we know that he never said. Here's stuff that he didn't say, but it fits. And one of those makes it into the Bible. You have the woman caught in adultery. You have, this great story that never happened, that Jesus didn't say these things. And we all know he didn't say these things. In every Bible, it's bracketed off. This is not an authentic saying. But it's consistent with what Jesus teaches, so therefore, we're okay with it. We're like, if there's a movie, we're going to include it. If there's a book about Jesus, we're going to include it. If something's about Jesus, we're including this story that might have never happened, because it's consistent with the theme of what Jesus said. And I think it's the exact same thing here with Buddha. You have what people think Buddha said, what Buddha most likely said, and what we know he never could have said. I think that's absolutely true. Okay, let's see. I do write a kind of Yoda-like text, and don't worry about that, Sandals. You're doing great. Don't worry about forgetting words like is and has. My wife's Chinese. She forgets words all the time, and she has a doctorate in, I can't say what it is, but it's in. She has a doctorate degree. Don't worry about it. It doesn't mean anything. All right, let's play just a little bit more, and then let's get into Michael Beverly, shall we?
There's your three categorizations for literature within Buddhism. Yep. Canon, dogma, and all this. They're the three things we'll go into, and you've got to decide which one is which. Yeah. Now I've been told by I was talking to Tales from Dawn Till Dusk, and which is Brian Cole, and he was saying there are some early references to the soul in Buddhism, but for the life of him, and it was just off the cuff conversation. He says, "Please don't take it, as gospel. I just remember reading about it in early documents. There was talk of the soul. Same as Stephen O'Geary. He has talked to me on."
Okay, so that's 30 minutes of Antony Cummins. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, it's going to be Michael Beverly from here on out. We're going to try to do an hour of Michael Beverly, if not more. We're going to do him responding to me, him doing a debate, him responding to someone else. So we're going to see how it goes. I don't know if we're going to get to everything. We're going to have fun with it. This is all in the build-up to me and Michael having a live conversation on his channel, getting deep into our disagreements and agreements on everything. All right, we're going to take a quick break. I'll be right back. Sandals, don't go anywhere. It's going to be less than 2 minutes. I'm just going to get some water and stretch my legs.
Growing up, parents got me a guitar. Said you could do anything, kid, you could go far. You could be the president, fireman, race cars. The sky's the limit, kid, so shoot for the stars. So I strummed that guitar every day. Found the passion for music never went away. I joined a couple bands and played a few shows. Tried to impress the girl in the front row. But soon enough, everything starts to change. As you grow up, nobody treats you the same. They try to take your future and make it real safe. You could be a doctor, accountant, or something sane. But yo, whatever happened to the sky was the limit. I fell in love with music, never thought it was a gimmick. I worked so hard on every tune and every single lyric. My whole identity depended on being artistic. Now you wanna strip that away so you feel okay? Cause if I make it to the top, what does that really say? That you shouldn't have given up, that you made the mistake? But if I fail, you feel much better about picking your lane, right? Yeah, things are gonna get better real soon. Yeah, I'ma just do me, you just do you. I swear it's gonna get better real soon. Anyone tell you what you should do? I got a clear view. We're gonna make it soon.
I don't even know if I have it set up so you can hear the music when I'm on screen. So I might just be doing this to like nothing. All right, let's do some Michael Beverly, shall we? Again, all gratitude to Antony Cummins for letting me comment on his video. Thank you.
Right, guys. Back to this playlist. We're not visiting this a while, man.
Okay. And Sandals, I pissed off a Catholic apologist. He gave me a copyright strike. I countered the claim, but if it does go to court and they don't agree, I could lose my channel. So if that happens, I will be in other platforms where you can reach me. Okay, so don't worry about that. But yeah, I made fun of him. He didn't like it. So he took, I used about 5 minutes of his footage, and he copyright claimed a 30-minute video of mine. So, what are you going to do? All right. Yeah. Where is Michael Beverly? I just spent all that time putting it over here, and I don't even see it. Let's see. Huh, they're not on here. Okay, that's weird. Well, I guess we got to go to his channel instead. I had them saved on here and they're suddenly gone. Beverly. And again, I'm doing this response here because I don't want him to make a response to this response. He can if he wants to. This is just me clearing the cobwebs out and putting all the cards on the table before me and him actually do an actual interaction with each other. And I hope he does watch this because I am going to be responding to everything that he countered to me. But yeah. Contra Michael. Woohoo. I am so low energy compared to Michael. Yeah. This is so trippy. It's me on me. It's so meta. Is this self-sus? Okay, here we go. I'm just going to play the Michael Beverly parts. I'm not going to play my parts. And we're going to skip some of it because he goes a little bit long. I go a little bit long too. But we're going to skip some parts of it. I think YouTube is weird too, Sandals. I agree with you. All right. All right, fast forward mode. I recommend you watch the whole thing. Go to his channel and watch it. We're going to be doing fast forwarding.
And theists of all stripes. I try never to mean it where people make mistakes because I don't call it sin, of course, not being religious, but when we do things that...
It doesn't have to be a religious thing. Sin, the word sin is a Greek term. You don't have to conflate it with religion. It's a word and it's useful.
Violate our own belief system, for instance, like saying, well, to give an example, I say I shouldn't eat so many carbohydrates, and then I still make myself a sandwich with these subjects. And the theist, whether Protestant, Catholic, liberal Christian, or conservative Christian, but they'll quite...
And he, in his answers, he goes in a route, which you can see him, he's not actually on the route yet, but he gets there. He gets to the road, he takes the route, and I completely disagree with where he goes. Not because it counters what I'm saying, but because it ignores the context of my words for what my words would mean if I was someone else. And that's fine. He has no reason to know the greater context of what I'm saying. I don't expect him to mind read. But he does a thing that I would see happen back when I used to debate on Gar's channel and when I used to debate on that other channel that I forget what the name of it was. And you would see and this happened actually in a debate that I just reviewed with Woodford and Dr. Derricks, where Dr. Derricks was saying something very open and very, very fluttery, very heterodox of all things. And Woodford would only hear the Orthodox Christian answer, and he would be responding to a thing she never said, so far to the point that she actually had to say, those are not the words that I said. Like she had to put her foot down because of how badly and how often that was happening. It is Yule, not Christmas for me, like it is not sin but evil, or not soul but mind. Yeah, no, Sandals, I do get it. Like, you don't want to use the language of, not you, but I'm just putting this, you don't want to use the language of your enemy. You don't want to use words that give power to the other side. That's not how you think. That's not how you rationalize. That totally makes sense. I get it. But I don't think words should belong to any one particular group. I'm Republican, so, But yeah, I don't think words belong to anybody. You use them how you want.
Often say, oh, but the argument you're using is based on a wrong thinking of X theology. That's what those other people. So we're quite often playing, as Sam Harris once said, tennis without a net.
Well, it's no true Scotsman, but except we're saying that we are the true Scotsman. We are the one. We are the Highlander. That is what we're saying.
If me or other, anti-theist, skeptics, cynics, atheists, whatever you want to say, or arguing against...
Sandals asks, is it just language? It kind of doesn't matter. In my language, we call Christmas Yule, which people will find weird. I like Yule. To be honest, I like some of the older language, the more romantic language stuff. I'm not much of a Spanish speaker. I don't speak French. That's not my thing. I could. I could for a very long time do some Russian, and I can still do some Chinese. Um, but yeah, I'm not really into the Romance languages, but I like the Romance languages that are borrowed and stolen and put it into English. I love them. I'll use a French word as an English word all day long. So yeah.
against a theology or a concept that you specifically as a certain Christian don't hold, okay, but blame your co
No, but see, it's not, and we're gonna go into that when we cover your video on do different religions, do differences make invalidate religions or something like that. I don't know. I remember what you said. Um, the title of the video, that is. But that's not what's happening. It's again Buddhist scriptures. Okay, there's a lot of Buddhist scriptures, a lot of stuff, but there's a certain way of thinking and a certain way of working it. Um, I love mythology. The Roman gods and the Greek gods are basically the same gods, but they're not. The Roman gods have completely different motivations and completely different ways of acting than the Greek gods. Yes, the Romans steal some of those ideas from the Greeks, and they steal some of the stories and the narratives, but the behavior of the gods in the stories are very different. In the Roman writings, they don't even believe that all the gods are the gods. That these are becoming more story, becoming more narrative. Well, when you look at the Greek writings, they believe that the gods are the gods and that they will act nobly and they will do these things and have these consequences for their actions. So it's very different, even though they're similar. And when you start reading, as I have, when you start reading the documents of different religions, of different denominations, and the differences between the Puritans and the Pietists and the Wesleyans and the Anglicans and the Lutherans, and you start getting into their doctrines, and you get their Bible commentaries, and you get um, their statements of faith and their confessions. These documents are very illuminating, and you can understand how to talk to them and how to engage with them. When I engage with a Calvinist, I can almost win every single argument because I've bothered to read their theology and their statements of faith. When I engage with a Baptist, it becomes a little harder because no matter how much of their documents that I read, Baptist is sort of unorganized by nature, so that there's no overseer. So because of this congregational nature of baptism, of Baptist, you have a harder time pinpointing a specific theological thread in their belief system. Lutheranism is very tight, very solid. You can figure out exactly what they're going to say, exactly where they're going to go in their arguments. Catholicism, while more well-rounded, you do have several specific flavors and branches, whether it's the rad trads, the conservatives, or the liberals. And you can figure out what people are going to say once you kind of figure out their theological niche. But in Catholicism, you also have these kind of sects, for lack of a better word, where you have these brotherhoods, if you will. You have Thomists, you have Dominicans, you have Anglicans within the Catholic, like Catholic Anglican. You have all this kind of stuff going on where who their mentor is, who the spiritual father, the church father that they're looking at, or church doctor that they're looking at, whether it's, Saint Avila, whether it's Saint Augustine, is going to dictate how they interpret certain theological problems. Once you read this stuff and you know what it is, it's very identifiable. It's very straight down the line, and you understand the differences. They don't commingle and co-mix, and they don't contradict each other just to contradict, and they're not just a rambling mess. They're each different theological structures, philosophical structures, and they work the exact same way in theology that it does in philosophy. And again, I'm a philosophy major. I don't have a doctorate or anything like that. I have a humanities of arts, But I've been reading philosophy since I was 15 years old, and I do it to this day. I still read Kierkegaard. I read, I don't have any of my guys here, but, I've read all of this stuff. Every book here I've read. They're not just for show. These are stuff that I've read. I love Hegel. I love Nietzsche. I love Voltaire. But just because they're all philosophy doesn't mean they're all saying the same thing. No one's going to confuse Plato for Aristotle, even though that they influenced each other. No one's going to, well, I should say that Plato influenced Aristotle. No one's going to confuse Aristotle for Nietzsche, or Nietzsche for Kierkegaard, or Kierkegaard for Hegel, or Hegel for Sartre, or Sartre for Kant. Like, these are all different philosophical structures, and these are all different religious structures and theological structures. Oh, Sandals. Let me see. Sorry about that. Sandals has a Scandinavian Lutheran background, but a heretic one. That's fine. And he's kind of an atheist, which, again, fine. On this channel, atheism is not a problem. But yeah, no, blah, 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 blah. Let's keep going.
Religionist and blame your own Bible and blame your own God for making it so confusing. I'll argue.
It's not confusing. I was just saying, it's very simple. There's just different methods of study and learning and expressing. But the basic concepts are there. The concepts that Aristotle set up are the same concepts that Sauter is fighting against, and Nietzsche is mocking. The concepts, the biblical concepts and the theological concepts, are some universal ones. So you go to the global religion scale, the coexist scale. You have certain religious concepts that are core and key to the human identity of religion. Now, there's not a lot of them. There's just certain identifiers for what religion is. Okay, it's not Protestantism. Religion is something much bigger, much more grand. And then you get into the specifics. Okay, so this is what Buddhism is. And you have a wide Buddhism, and then you have, in very particular, different types of Buddhism. This is what Hinduism is. And then you have different types of Hinduism. Then you have different dedications to different incarnations of the god. You go into paganism, whether it's going to be Greek or Norse or... Unfortunately, I haven't read enough paganism for my taste. I've done all the Greek stuff. I've done most of the Roman stuff. I've done all the Norse stuff. I've done the majority of what's available for the Mesopotamian stuff. I've done most of that. Again, what's available to the public, I don't have access to the libraries that, like, Dr. Bowman probably has access to. But I read all this stuff. And you know the difference between a Canaanite god and a Norse god. You don't need the stories to take place in different locations to know how the religion plays out differently. And then when you get into things like ritual or... Hold on, I'm grabbing something. When you get into things like the rituals of the different cultures and the way that different religions were set up and the way that they work out, you can understand how they were practiced. You can understand how the different religions are not the same. How someone who worships Isis is very different than someone who worships Ishtar, and someone who worships Athena is very different than someone who worships Zeus. And they're going to have different practices and different traditions and different practices. Whether you're praying at the oak tree or you're praying to the sound of an owl, like they're very clear and distinct differences here. So I think the first thing you have to do is you have to unclutter your mind of the preconception of what Protestantism has told you about paganism. You have to throw that out. And then you have to clear your mind of all the clutter, of all the negative connotations you have about Christianity. Now, I'm not saying you have to undo or forgive or whatever trigger word you're hearing right now. That's not what I'm saying to you. I'm saying all the nonsense that isn't the actual religion, that isn't the actual faith, that is just what people have said the religion teaches, but the religion doesn't teach. You have to get rid of all that stuff and then get to the core doctrine, the core dogma. Then you can start having fun. You can start playing games with the religion. You can start pushing and pulling and seeing what different threads do. I've done this with Calvinists. They don't like it, but it's very fun to do. I've done this with some Catholics, and they don't like it. They don't. Whatever his name is, Brian, ran for the hills. The virginally Christian Mario. I'm the one who, wrecked his shit. So there are people who can't take that kind of prodding. I, who can take it and dish it out, still get uncomfortable when I'm going through it. B.S. Lewis has put me in corners that I'm uncomfortable with. So it's not as if knowing how it works somehow makes you immune from the issues involved with the theology itself. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that it somehow makes all the religions right. What I'm saying is that if you actually understand the claim that there is a God, and you understand that claim means that, okay, well, if there is a God, then there has to be a way to understand this God. And there are different understandings of what this God is. And is it void? Is it chaos? Is it the Jewish Abrahamic, the Abrahamic Judeo-Christian Islamic God? Is it that monotheistic God? Is it Atan? Is it the Egyptian understanding of the world God, the creator God? What is the ultimate deity? What is the ultimate supreme deity? There's another word that I'm trying to think of that I can't get to. But this ultimate being, what is it? What is this thing that creates, that is not a created thing, that is outside of our reality? These kind of become the core questions, and that becomes our theology. And in classical theology, which is what Woodford keeps on arguing against, he keeps on mistaking classical theology for bibliology, which I don't understand why. You then get caught up in this theological development that has nothing to do with the Bible or faith in God. I love theology, but you don't need to have read a single church father to believe in God. You don't need to read the Bible to believe in God. God is real and God is true, whether or not the Bible is real or true. The Bible could be completely false and God's still real. If God exists, God is real, whether the Bible is true or not. Get it?
Argue against the actual real hell if you can show me actual real evidence that there is an actual real hell. You don't have any. It's just, it's a mythology. And the irony here is...
And this kind of upset me when I was watching your video the first time, because clearly you don't know some of my views or some of the longer mythos or lore around me and my channel. So me and a very lovely atheist who I miss very dearly, and I would almost say I used to breastfeed, Garmania, we did a 3 or 4 part, I almost want to call it a series, even though it was just us engaging and talking with each other, where we went through every single mention of hell in the Bible and every possibility of hell in the Bible. And most of it was just Tartarus or Sheol or Gehenna. None of it was talking about the hell that developed later in theology. And what Sheol is the land of the dead. It's the underworld. It's death. It's burial. That's all that it is. A lot of people don't know that Tartarus is a real place. A lot of people don't know that Hades is a real place. You can go to the River of Styx. You can go to this area in Greece and go under the, it's like this little cave area, and you can go into the underworld. And the underworld is a literal underworld. Sheol is literally the earth. It's the theology that developed out of the mythology that is clouding your ability to see what's being said. You're fighting the mythology, not the claim. It's okay not to believe in the claim. It's okay. You can say, hey, look, people getting buried, that's just, it's just practical. It's not a religious thing. Fine. You can say that. I think it's a religious thing, but you can say it's practical. That's fine. But what ends up happening in almost all of these videos, not just yours, all of the videos that are on YouTube and TikTok, is that you're arguing over mythos that is not even part of the Bible. And then when you get to the Bible, you're arguing over interpretations that are not the actual text. And then when you get to the actual text, you're arguing over the translation, and you're never actually arguing about what it says. And that's not you, and that's not just you, and that's not, the whole picture, the whole scope is people arguing about whether or not you have to say 3 Hail Marys, or whether or not Mary ascended into heaven. It's an interesting argument. Has nothing to do with the question of whether or not Jesus is God and God is real. If Jesus is God, Christianity is true. If Jesus resurrected on his own will, on his own, he's God. If that didn't happen, Christianity is false. That's it. The rest of the Bible can be completely false. As long as that one thing's true, Christianity is true. If it didn't happen, the rest of the Bible can be 100% correct. Christianity is still false. If there is a God, it doesn't matter if the Bible is correct or not. There's still a God. If there's not a God, it doesn't matter if all the history in the Bible is absolutely word for word what actually happened. If there's not a God, all the history could be absolutely correct. It doesn't make a God exist. That's the point. And I think that's where me and you are slightly miscommunicating in these video responses. And again, they're video responses. I get it. All right, let's move on a little bit more.
When you explain how confusing the Bible is, and when you explain how the concept of hell, it didn't exist in the Old Testament, it got developed in AD XYZ year by XYZ church father, or it evolved over time into this, blah blah blah. Well, okay, you're just elucidating the entire problem. Everybody.
Again, hell is just the land of the dead. It's just where people go when they die. That's the original meaning. Don't worry about the theological developments of hell. You don't even believe in hell. All that hell is where everybody goes when they die. Even Jesus went to hell. Hell is just Sheol. It's just where people go when they die. That's it. It's a word choice by, I believe, Jerome. Maybe he picked a bad word. Maybe he shouldn't have picked that word, but it's the word he picked. Maybe he should have picked inferno, or whatever other the Latin word is that's also equivalent for hell. But he didn't. So we're stuck with this word. But the word is not the concept, and the concept is not the mythology, and the mythology is not the fiction. So if you wind it back and go, okay, so people go somewhere when they die, and when they die, they cease to exist. That's what hell is. Hell is the ceasing to exist. It's dying the true death. The hope of salvation, the hope of eternal life, is that everything that we go through is not meaningless, and therefore, after we're dead, we remain alive. How? We remain alive in Jesus. Do we have personal consciousness? No. We are part of the body of Christ. Our wills submit to his. We are one with Christ. Christ is one with God, and therefore we are one with God. We have become God. We have become one with God. We have gone through a process called theosis. That's the Christian argument from the beginning. That's what everything about Holy Hezekiah, that's what that's about. It's about partaking in the oneness of Christ and the oneness of God in the Holy Trinity, about participating in that. It's not about judging whether or not you're going to hell, because everyone's going to hell. Only the elect few are going to heaven. It's not about whether or not you're gay, straight, bi, polyamorous, like apparently you are. None of that matters. All of that is smoke caused by Christians who are scared, are angry, are frustrated with their lives. None of that matters. If you're following Christ and you're following God, you're going to do what God and Christ asked you to do. If you're not following Christ, then you're not going to do the things that Christ asked you to do. That's simple. You want to be Jewish, you got to do the Jewish things. You want to be Christians, you want to be a Christian, you got to do the Christian things. You don't want to do the Christian things, you're not a Christian. I get that there's Tyler Marshalls in the world. I get that there's Redeemed Zoomers in the world. I get it. Oh, we have another great comment from Sandals. Hold on. He says, I think as kind of an outsider, most likely Christian view of hell, in my opinion, is annihilation. I think, you said that. Yeah, I did. But the thing is that the Protestant understanding of eternal conscious torment clouds the traditional view of hell as the repose of the dead. So, understand that as a Catholic, I can't deny the existence of hell. I can't. If I did, I couldn't be Catholic. But what hell is not defined in the Bible. It's just not. So you have all of this theological speculation that is pissing off Michael. And, fine, be pissed off at the speculation, but that isn't what the point of religion is. That isn't what the point of Christianity is. There's a hell. I mean, I hate to break it to you. There's a hell regardless of whether you believe in Christ or not, whether you believe in God or not. There's a hell in Confucianism. There's a hell in Buddhism. There's a hell in Taoism. There's a hell in ancient pagan Romanism. There's a hell in ancient Xantharianism. There's a hell. There's a repose of the dead, and some people believe that the good people go to a good place and the bad people go to a bad place. Whether you want to call it the Elysian Fields, you want to call it the seventh heaven, whether you want to call it nirvana, whether you want to call it enlightenment, whether you want to call it oneness with the Buddha, whether you want to call it oneness with God, whatever you want to define heaven is, we believe that some people are rewarded and other people are not. And if you want to view the not being rewarded as punishment, that's fine. But it could also just be the default state.
Everybody disagrees on what actually hell is. Now you could read somebody that's intelligent and a good writer like C.S. Lewis, and then you can come away saying, oh, well, God doesn't send anybody to hell. No, of course not. You choose to be there. Hell is locked from the inside. Ha ha ha. Aren't I brilliant? No. Well, yes, you're brilliant, but no, you're not solving the problem. You're just using your intellect to throw more smoke and mirrors. Tell me exactly what your definition of hell is or is not, and heaven, and how exactly you get to these places, and then I can form an argument.
Heaven is oneness with God. You get there by conforming yourself to God. Hell is being distant from God. So if you're away from God now, you're in hell. If you're with God now, you're in heaven already. It's not some ideal state somewhere in the far off future. You can have hell now, you can have heaven now. This has been the argument going back to the Desert Fathers. This has been the argument from the Buddha. This has been the argument from Lao Tzu. One of the things that bothered me when you were doing your, I'm going to call it the spree part, or the rant part, I think it might be in the next video, but which we might not get to because there's a lot of good stuff to respond to. You're assuming a lot of stances that I don't actually hold, and you're assuming a lot of baggage that through my religious journey I personally have let go. So in reading the Church Fathers and practicing the Liturgy of the Hours, my faith grew immensely. Sinning now hurts. There was a time where I could sin and it didn't hurt. Now when I sin, I feel it, because I'm not conforming to who I want to be. Well, that gets into the definition of what's a sin. You look at your ideal self, your best self, the version of you that you want to be. And anytime you act against that version, anytime you do something out of character, specifically out of the character of who you claim you are, that is sinning against yourself. You're not being true to yourself. You're not being one with the way. You're not being one with the Buddha. You're not conforming to the way of Christ. You're on the broad path. You're asleep. Now, I can say it about 100 other ways, but that's because I've read all those religious books. I've read all those religious books. I've read all those religious books. All those religious books. All the ones in 2 rooms away, all those religious books. And the one 3 rooms away, I've read all those religious books. I got thousands and thousands and thousands of texts. I'm not telling you to do that. I'm not saying you have to do that. But I'm saying to understand what enlightened people are saying, you have to let go of the baggage. And you have to let their words mean what they say. And I feel a lot of atheist and Catholic and atheist and Christian interactions, neither side lets the other side mean what they say. And I think that's a shame. I saw it in the Woodford barracks debate. Neither side was letting the other side mean what they said. They had to constantly reform it to mean something different. Well, maybe the atheist is just saying he doesn't believe, and maybe the Christian is just saying they believe. That's it.
Against that position. Unless, of course, it's, you have so much evidence and it's so compelling, then maybe I'll agree with you. But so far, no. What I have is 50 million opinions, and they all have some degree of contradiction.
It's not 50 million opinions. It's just like maybe like 10.
If not complete contradiction. Why? Maybe the Mormons are right.
Here's the good thing about having been a Taoist for so long is that paradoxes really don't bother me. Believe me, this frustrates people in the last 2 jobs I've had, that paradoxes don't bother me. Paradoxes don't bother me. 2 opposite things can be true at the exact same time. It's fine.
Maybe there's a purgatory, and everybody, except for, Hitler and Lenin and Stalin, everybody gets a second chance.
I mean, technically, even Hitler and Judas could get to heaven. We don't know. There's this great, and I played it on this channel twice, actually. This great commentary from a rabbi about whether or not Hitler's in heaven. And I was just, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing about forgiveness and about, he goes, at the end of the day, I hope he's not. But if he is, it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Maybe the whole thing is just a fantasy. There's no actual evidence for hell. It's just some people wrote some stuff down in a book.
Again, hell is just the repose of the dead. It's just oblivion. It's the true death. It's dying death. That's all that hell is. You go back to what it means originally, that's all that it is. It's the repose, the land of the dead. It's Tartarus, it's Gehenna, it's Sheol, it's Hades. It's just the land of the dead. That's all that it is. Yeah, let's move ahead.
Etc. There's plenty of domains in which we completely accept and recognize that it's appropriate to have an in-group and an out-group. The problem is, for most things in the world, when you have...
I disagree with this completely. There's totally people I don't want in my life, and I totally have the right to tell those people to fuck off. Let's continue.
But it's possible. It's also possible that some something that we would call a supernatural deity if it's logically consistent, caused this earth and programmed just math. Supernatural deity if it's logically consistent.
And the problem with Islam, he mentioned Islam. I don't know what he said, but I watched this. I want to be very clear. I watched everything he said, but in the context of right now, I don't know exactly what he was saying. But the reason why I don't believe Islam is true is because if I lived out those principles, I would be an evil person. I'm not saying that people who follow Islam are evil. I'm pretty sure those principles work for other people. They don't work for me. I would be a terrible, terrible person. The reason why Christianity is true for me is because the principles work for me. Hands on the table, the cards on the table. If Christianity was telling me to be an evil person, I wouldn't be a Christian. I'm a Christian because I believe God is real and because I like being a better person than what I am without it. Call it selfish, but I think that's a pretty good reason.
Caused this earth and
I treat people better, and I treat myself better.
programmed it. But those things are possible. But the difference between science and religion is religion almost always classroom. I don't care about that stuff. 2 + 2 = 4.
Whether it's genres in literature and
Activity of golf being a white sport and country.
oh no, I'm not. Oh, are you talking about his comment? I don't know.
Clothes being for whites. But it didn't come easy. Even for him, it didn't come easy. For others, who we will never know their names, it destroyed any chance. In fact, it destroyed.
No, I'm just gonna mind you right now. I'm pretty pale because I haven't been outside. But as the two of us that has more melanin, I've experienced some really shitty racism in my life. So yeah, let's not worry about that. Let's not get into that, shall we? Let's see. I want to when he starts talking about miracles, I want to respond to that because I want to get into some of the miracle claims in my life.
So let's put this intelligence thing to the side and talk about racism, bigotry, homophobia, sexism, transphobia, hatefulness, misogyny, the things that are in that list. Okay, so racism. In Matthew 15, 24, 27, Jesus makes it very clear. I was only.
Yes, but that doesn't work because the very next line is he helps her. And he's saying this as a lesson to his apostles that he's here for everyone. That's how everyone interprets it. That's what everyone knows it means. And he's using it as an example that he's here for everyone. Okay.
Civil rights movement, American Christians used these verses to segregate society. These were Christians.
And the Christian pastors who were fighting against segregation and fighting against, why can't I remember what Reconstruction, Jim Crow laws. There we go. I'm from the South, and I couldn't remember it. Those were also Christian preachers and pastors using Christian verses. Bigotry, where are the miracle claim stuff? I want to go cover that one.
Being father to you? Of course not. A Christian have to make excuses. Well, say, well, these verses are taken out of context.
Let's see.
A relationship with Jesus on earth had value.
I think it was about your comment about not wanting to be around those people. But yeah, I do agree that my view is quite idealistic.
You're admitting that there are lesser people, the Chinese or the African or the Egyptian or the.
Well, right now my room's not very, very packed, but let's just pretend. Michael, if you're watching this, feel free to hop on. I can send you a link. I am in Streamlabs, so if
the Eskimo or whoever, the South Pacific Islander, or all there's actually thousands and thousands of people groups that it's life easier for you. This is safe. This is very binary. We tend to see male and female in our normal lives, our general day-to-day. The common has
Hi. Thank you, Sandals. Thank you. I don't know what I just said. I'm going to move on. It doesn't matter.
And if it ain't you,
No. What are you doing? How long was I muted for? Was it for a long time or a short time? I think this is going to be where he's going to get into the miracle claims. Catholic, I must strongly disagree. Yes, Christianity makes exclusive truth claims. Every belief system does.
Making the claim isn't the problem. That would be very ironic, because it would be a twist on what our expectation is, because I don't think there's a heaven and hell, and you do. But why? What is your evidence for hell or heaven? What is your evidence for your God over the Muslim or the Hindu gods or any other deities? Is it from your intellect? Well, I can find a million PhDs or master's degrees in these other religions, in Islam and Hinduism, that would just say you're wrong.
Actually, most religions believe in a heaven and a hell, so I'm just saying.
God's laws, the way you want to connect them to physical laws, is an illogical, and it's a very sneaky trick. If you or I jump off a building without a parachute or a bungee...
So I wanted to respond to this part as well, because this was also a little frustrating. It seems like he didn't understand where I was getting what I was saying. Especially when I started talking about the biblical principles, and I was giving them in the more broader sense. These are the principles that I learned from here, from this stuff, from Aristotle, from Plato, from Descartes, from Kant, from trying to think of someone else that I like on this list. From Lao Tzu, from Sun Tzu, from who is over here? From Voltaire. More Kant. Man, I read way too much Kant. From Hegel, from Sartre, and from a bunch of other guys too. Except for Foucault. Never Foucault. I hope B.S. Lewis is watching. Okay. But you gotta also understand, I didn't just read religious books. I also lived life. Life also taught me these lessons. And, you know, there's the whole thing about Dracula and Carmilla, but I'm not going to get into that. No, let's just keep going.
cord, and we're high enough up, and we're not landing on snow or water or something. Church tradition by other people that follow your tradition. Why is that? Why is it that there isn't Muslim gravity, and why?
Actually, there's our Muslim sciences. Just FYI, which is funny. And there are some Catholic stuff too, but Catholic tries to be more universal. That's not just a pun. But Scientology has its own way of understanding things. There's faith healing if you want to go to Pentecostalism. If you go to Hinduism. Anyway, I was about to talk about aliens and the gods. But anyway, if you ignore what I just said. When you discover a truth, it's true regardless of what denomination or faith you're in. So these universal truths are objective truths, if you will, are the truths that religious people are trying to get to. And so when you get to these noble truths, when you get to that all life is suffering, you turn the other cheek. You know, you get to these realizations, if you will, these awakenings, and what ends up happening is you start trying to collect them, and The argument in Catholicism is that we're the religion that contains the most truth. But every religion contains some truth, and the further away you go from the absolute truth, the less truth it contains. It's pretty much the argument.
Is it that there's not Mormon biology? And why is it that there's not Pentecostal geometry? Well, because the science
Let's going to move on from that.
is a God that doesn't exist, so that I could be a loved son and feel wanted. And it'd be a losing game that I would play for the rest of my life, likely. So I'm very grateful that the circumstances came up that.
And again, the thing that I was talking about with resentment and all of that, again, that comes from Plato and Socrates and Lao Tzu and Sun Tzu, and a lot from Sun Tzu, actually. So, if you don't know, I was a Taoist from 15 till 30. And I taught martial arts for a good chunk of that time. No, let's not get into that. But I taught martial arts, and I would teach my students out of the Tao Te Ching and out of Sun Tzu, The Art of War, and out of the Book of Five Rings by Miyamoto Musashi. And we would go through these books. Every year I'd get new students, and every year we'd go through the entire thing. We'd start off with Lao Tzu, move on to Sun Tzu, and finish off with Miyamoto Musashi. And we do the cycler. And while doing that, we'd also have as a background the Aristotle's ethics, Nicomachean ethics, I believe is the name we would use. And we'd use that as a basis for principles and virtues, because I was teaching a Greek martial art called pancreation. So when I'm talking about these truths, these biblical truths, I discovered them long before I discovered the Bible. I didn't read the Bible all the way through for the first time until I was 33. But I had read all this other stuff. So your discounting of these things as religious hypocrisy or somehow contradictory to human nature is just not true. Unless you're saying all of philosophy is contradictory to human nature. And all religion is contradictory to faith. I mean, if you want to say that about philosophy and theology and art, you can. I just don't think it's wise.
Cause them to show their true colors and cause me to evaluate Christianity in a new light, in a way that I never would have done had there hadn't been a catalyst for it. So if that truism that you'll end up being lonely and bitter if you harbor unforgiveness, if that's a biblical truth?
Epictetus. That's an Epictetus truth. But yes, biblical truth.
Then Alpha, I've just proved your Bible is wrong. I am more...
I hate to tell you this, but I think Epictetus is correct, and I think you're wrong. I was a Stoic for a small chunk of that time, right before actually I got my job as a salesman. I was a Stoic, so yeah.
happy now than I've ever been. And I've been an atheist now for over a dozen years.
Okay, but being an atheist doesn't mean anything. What's your philosophical basis of your life? Are you a humanist? I like humanist. Are you a Stoic? I was a Stoic. Are you a Kantian? Utilitarian? Existentialist? How are you viewing the world? And it doesn't matter if you haven't read these books. If your way of thinking is consistent with the way of thinking that they prescribed and described, then that is your mode of apparatus, of apparati. That is how you think. That's how you function. Are you a cynic? You might be a cynic. I think you're a cynic. Are you a hedonist? You might be a hedonist. I tried that out for a while. Didn't work for me. I got very sick, almost died, lost my ability to walk.
Happier, better adjusted, better friends, better relations, a better partner who I'm madly in love with, a better relationship with her.
The more we conform to God. Well, that's the... Sandel says, well, maybe parts of religion and philosophy are harmful to human existence. That is the argument. That is the creation of Satan and the devil. That is the Antichrist. That is the great gift of dualism from Xantharianism. That is the gift that he gives to the spiritual thinking, is that there is a negative side, a dark philosophy. God's will, the higher our nature becomes.
The problem is you have no sister that you should let.
Oh, I definitely have a lot of idea about higher natures. We can talk about that when we talk one-on-one. I hope we do talk about that, because I spent a lot of time thinking about higher natures and working on a higher nature.
Him? I hope not. Live exactly for the utilitarian purposes of creating youth. Why is that? Because the world sees very little, if any, difference between Christians and everyone else. They all disagree. Therefore,
They don't all disagree. I've read the majority of the religions in the world. They don't all disagree.
be a deist if you must. If you believe there's a God, there must be, as long as it is his property.
No, they're not the same. They're not making the same claims, but they don't all disagree.
Leads to less
And
anxiety,
they don't all disagree on everything either.
less depression. Every metric in my life is
Everybody, all the religions are trying to make sense of the same data, and they're just coming to different conclusions. That's what they're doing. Every religion that I've ever read, including the mockery religions, including the Satanic Bible, they're just trying to make sense of the data that exists. That's all that they're doing. And they're coming to different conclusions based on the same data. If I do this and this, this happens. If I do this and this, that happens. Why? It's the why. It goes back to Socrates. It's the why. It's the big evolution in philosophy, is the big evolution in religion. It's the why.
better. I can only plead to my Christian friends. Any advice on improvements? Would you in massive suffering and then say, free will, it's free? Talking about facts and numbers and science and methodologies.
I'm assuming you meant data. Sandel says, I kind of think religion is not about the data, but the life lessons and teachings.
Yes, they can be own it, and you want to be in charge of your life. You find yourself in a position of being this slave. I mean, but your own words, you're a slave. I don't know if you're truly saying you're happy with this position, or if what you're actually saying is that's just the way that it is, and if you want to not be punished, or you want to be rewarded, or you want. Now you might say, well, that's why God gave us free will, because we do being dictated to.
I don't know if you're a determinist or not. We can talk about that when we talk. So I did not find the part about miracles. So I'm going to talk about that before we go into the next video. So I've had several miracles happen in my life. Let's begin with, I'm a preemie. I was born super duper duper early. Like I wasn't done baking. I still had estrogen in my body, more estrogen than testosterone. It didn't get the testosterone flush till I was 13. So I was a very feminine child. It wasn't like it wasn't a chromosome thing like male, but I wasn't done baking. I wasn't done cooking. I had to be in an incubator for a very, very long time after I was born. That's beautiful, Sandals. I also believe in miracles. That's what I'm kind of getting into. Sandal says, I believe in the miracle of life, of life. So, oh, on ice. Okay. Anyway, so my dad used to say that he had a guardian angel because every time that he would mess up or get drunk or something would go wrong, somehow he'd make it home okay. He'd be safe. I'm not bringing that up for nothing. I'm going somewhere with this. When I was a kid, um, after my mom died, after my sister died, and after we moved to a new neighborhood, I got jumped. I got jumped so severely that my heart stopped for 1 minute. I had an outer body experience. Um, there are, of course, ways you can explain all that. The collapse of the throat, not being able to breathe, the impact in the back of my head against a steel pole, not a steel pole. I'm sorry, a steel beam. The speed of the person who ran up to me, the number of people who attacked me, all that can be explained. Fine. But I had an outer body experience. And I was able to see things. When my body was in one place, I was able to see things and hear things that I would not have been able to heard. And when I went back and to confirm, hey, did you really say this? Or hey, was this really happening? It was. So it's weird. It's an interesting thing. It's weird. It's a weird thing. That's, to me, that's a miracle. I did not die. Let's move on. The next miracle is more of a private one, but I asked God for something directly, and it was granted to me. Mind you, I always had faith in God. I always believed in God. Didn't always believe the Bible. This would have been when I was not a practicing Christian in any kind of way. I was a little hedonistic, deviant at the time, and yet prayed, and it happened. Followed after some changing of my ways and that kind of thing. When I was in college, I had a cancer scare. I was, for more than a year, I was bleeding from my gut. The bleeding started very small, got pretty bad, ended up going through a really bad breakup. My life completely fell apart. And at the end of the day, what looked like cancer, what could have been cancer, I mean, I was taking the radiated pill, I was taking the Prep pack, I was taking the antibiotic, I was taking the it's 3 pills. I always get it. Antibiotic, radiated pill, and something else. One killed bacteria, one killed everything, and then one killed like antibacterial, antibiotic. I think it was an antibacterial, antibiotic, and radiated pill. I think that's what it was. I got down to 150 pounds. I looked terrible. I think I could find a picture if I looked for it hard enough. Ended up just being H. pylori. Just H. pylori. To me, minor miracle. I get it. You could say misdiagnosis. But to me, it was major. Another one that I forgot to bring up because I was thinking about a different situation is during 9/11. I have a 9/11 story. Everyone does. This is not unique or special to me. But when I got out of high school, I was going to join the military. And I was going to go military intelligence, logistics. And in my swearing in, there was a contract problem. I was supposed to be an E3 rank, and I was an E2. So I was going to get E3 rank, but E2 pay. And they said, we messed up. We got several options. Option number one is you join the military and you keep your E3 rank, but you just have to deal with E3 pay. And after everything's done, after you get assigned your MOS, we can work all of this out contractually. And by then it might not even matter because you might get promoted, whatever. Okay. Option number two. You sign away the E3 rank, go in as a regular soldier, and it won't matter. Number three, because we messed up, you can technically leave, and you don't have to join the military. And I chose option three, and they shredded all my documents, including my birth certificate. It was very funny. They were pissed. But I was going for military intelligence. I was going for logistics. I probably should have gone to the Marine Corps. I probably should have gone recon. But I wanted to be in military intelligence because my mentor who taught me martial arts was in military intelligence. I, by quitting the military, missed 9/11. I was not in the military during 9/11. The department that I would have been working in, logistics, at the Pentagon, if I remember correctly, is the place that was hit in the Pentagon. Again, circumstantial, no guarantee that I would have passed my MOS, that I would have passed all my tests, that I would have gone through all the batteries, that I would have actually been stationed there, that I would have actually gone to war. I could have been a janitor on a base in Alabama and never seen war. Possible. But to me, divine providence, I wasn't in the military when 9/11 started, and I wasn't in the department that would have put me more likely in the line of death. To me, that's something. I don't know if you know the story from Thomas. I don't know if you know the story from the guy from Family Guy, but he missed the flight by a coincidence, by some kind of weird mishap. He missed the flight, so his life was saved by him missing the flight. Like I said, everyone has a 9/11 story. I'm not even trying to play that up, but I'm countering a claim that Michael Beverly said about no miracles, and I'm explaining what to me are miracles in my life. So we got coincidence, we got health, we got all that. I'm assuming that the wow is from the guy from Family Guy. Yeah, that's an amazing. His is much more amazing than my story. So the next one. So I survived the cancer scare. I avoid going to war. I avoid going to war. I survived the cancer scare. I live my life as a personal trainer. Get broke, get fat, start dating. Get broke, start dating someone. I lose my job, can't find work for a little while. Start dating someone I really shouldn't be dating. Get very depressed, get very fat. I get to almost 300 pounds. I'm very short. I'm 5'7". So I become diabetic and I lose my ability to walk. And in not being able to walk, I go to the Jocelyn Center. I'm going to doctors trying to figure out what I can do. They all say nothing. I have a 14A1C. I'm beyond the point of death. I'm lucky to still be alive. They got to put me on insulin, all this other stuff. I tell them, nah. I pray to God. I tell God, if I get my legs back, if I can walk again, I will go to church. The very next morning, throw out all the bread, everything out of the house. I just throw it out of the house. And I walk on the treadmill for 1 minute at 1 mile an hour for 1 minute. Afterwards, I'm in pain. I mean, I am in pain. The next day, I walk for 2 minutes. Takes me almost a year. I get to 1 hour walking on the treadmill. I lose initially maybe like 50 pounds. I start doing yoga, not the religious version, the stupid American aerobic bullshit, but yoga, stretching. I end up suffering diabetic muscle loss in the back of my legs. So I used to have these massive muscular legs, and now I got baby muscle. I don't have good muscle anymore. But through my research and through my praying and through doing the Liturgy of the Hours, I come across an article by Gatorade and the University of Florida about if you lift to your extreme max, you automatically open the cell walls and it sucks in the sugar. And so when it sucks in the sugar, the walls that normally wouldn't be able to open and the sugar that normally wouldn't be able to absorb due to your insulin sensitivity is automatically absorbed because you've broken your threshold. So I start doing that. By the end of the year, I'm running 6 miles. And yes, I went to church. And yes, I went back to the Catholic faith. 100%. Yeah, I made a bargain. I made a deal. I said, God, if you do this, I will go back to church. He did it for me, and I went back to church. Now, there is one last one that I've been asked not to bring up. So I'm going to word this very carefully. I quit my job 8 months ago to take care of my dad full time, to be his provider. He has Alzheimer's. We got denied because his retirement's too high. I can be a provider, I just can't be a provider for him. But I can't go back to the job that I had, and it was a pretty good corporate job. It was a good job. I'm broke. So thanks to, let's say, some loving people, I have started a fund for my dad's care for the next 6 months. It's not forever, just enough to alleviate the pain. I'm gonna pretty much, I think probably within a week or two, assuming probably maybe even tomorrow, if the copyright strike goes away and my channel is safe, I'm going to start promoting my father's GoFundMe probably tomorrow or the next day. And you'll learn more about my life when I do that. My dad has advanced Alzheimer's. He is doing very well for someone with Alzheimer's. The doctor said he could live for another 20 years, 15 years, 20 years. But he's going to need care. He's going to need assisted living. And I got to get back to having a career and salvaging my marriage and all that kind of stuff. So there's another miracle right there. So, yeah, miracles are real. Those are the miracles that I've experienced in my life. I forgot the best one, guys. I forgot the island. South Padre Island. Me and my friends went out to go to Point 5. Point 5 now has a hotel. At the time, there was no hotel. Driving back, we already had weird experiences. There's a thing called the Texas Lights. Look into it. Art Bell. It's awesome. Not everybody knows about them, but they're really cool. So we're driving back, and there's a gap on the highway, on the expressway. And I swerve. And we don't fall off the gap. we hit some planks, some wood. Well, first off, we're going well over 50 miles an hour. We're going well over speed limit at the time. We're in my Jeep. We fly off the rampart, the area that's done. Me and my friend Watson, we both turn back. Jason's asleep in the back seat, and we go, Jason, wake up! We're about to die! And then we hit planks of wood. We swerved. We hit the planks of wood, and we survived. We didn't know the planks of wood were there. We just thought we were dead. We had to lift off. We were like, okay, we're done. Bam, planks of wood. We're alive. Other cars see what we did, take the same swerve. We save cars behind us. Now, we didn't just trust that this happened. We came back the next day after we had slept. We're like, we just got to know. Was this real? Did this really happen? We were questioning. We were like, well, that's insane. We go, and sure enough, the highway in that section is blocked off. They had taken down that section. They had a little, like, you can see the little wooden plank thing that they had done. It's like for a single car. If we hadn't swerved, the cars behind us wouldn't have seen it because it was completely blacked out. They would have gone over. Once they had the safety stuff, like they had it completely blocked off. And we were like, oh, it was real. Like this was a real thing that happened. Like, oh, wow. And we survived. And we helped other people survive. And I get it. I get what Michael's going to say. Well, what about all the people who, because there was also a tragedy here where a boat hit the causeway and people died. They're like, well, what about them? Well, what about your mother who died of diabetes? You were cured. Or what about your uncle who taught you martial arts who lost his legs? Yeah, I get it. What aboutism? Hey, these other people, was their faith not as strong as yours? You said that you were actually lacking faith. You weren't even practicing, and God answered your prayers. Yeah, because it's about the soul. It's about the spirit. I needed those miracles for my faith to be strong. Other people, maybe they didn't need them. Maybe their faith was strong without it, because it was the soul that matters. I can't answer for why God doesn't answer certain people's prayers. I can't answer why miracles don't happen to everybody, or if they do, why they don't notice them. What I can tell you is that God has always answered my prayers. And God has saved me in miraculous ways multiple times throughout my life. Whether you want to call them coincidence, dedication, hard work, these are the miracles that I've seen and experienced in my life. These are very real. Sandal says, I kind of think it is not much about the faith if you survive. To me, it's a very strong indicator of the faith. But yeah, no, I agree with you, Sandals. I'm trying to be ironic and funny, but in bare bones, I agree with you. And I don't have a good joke there, so I'm not going to say anything stupid. All right. We got 10 more minutes for the show. Let's do one more Michael Beverly thing. One more. We're not going to get to everything I wanted to get to on him, but we'll do one more thing. He was involved in a debate. Contra Michael Beverly.
Hey, this is Michael Beverly here. Let's hear it.
I wanna check out a little bit of the
I do a
debate.
variety
It was
of things
on
on
a
my
different channel.
from response videos to live
Oh,
interviews,
look, he has the intro.
and live chats, talking with scholars on both sides, both Christian and non-believer scholars. I have done a few video essays, including investigative type essays looking at claims of Christians. My experience as a Christian spans 38 years. It includes everything from foreign missions to lay leadership with home groups, high school groups, children's ministries, and men's groups, etc.
I'm gonna click this one to get to another video. We're not
Cool
gonna
stuff.
even. We're not even gonna listen to it. We're gonna go to the original. We're just gonna do a little touch. We're just gonna do like maybe 10 minutes. Okay. Where is it? This one? Is this the original? There we go. Okay, let's go back over here. Sandal says, double think. But if someone would say you didn't have enough faith because you didn't survive, I would think that is a horrible thing to say. Yeah, well, like I said, the miracles are there to prove to people that. So the argument. This is an argument actually from the Gospels. I don't know how solid or sound this argument is. It's just one that I've heard before. I've heard it multiple times. The miracles in the Gospels are there to prove to people who wouldn't believe otherwise. So when Catholics are praying for like prayers for the sick, or the prayers for the sick are not for them to get better; they're for them to have an easy death and for them to get to heaven after they die. Uh, it's not for them to get better or to get healthy. It's so prayers for the sick or the prayers for the dying are not for them to suddenly miraculously recover. It's that they die quickly, they get to heaven, that their suffering is minimized, that that they be forgiven for their sins, that their soul will be healthy when they get to heaven, that they be purified before they get to heaven, so they can get right past purgatory and go straight to heaven. Those are the prayers for the dead. That's what that is. It's not about prayers to heal are not about healing the body. They're about healing the soul. Um, so that's something that's different in Catholicism than some of the other more charismatic Christianities that are out there. But the argument would be that I needed those miracles to have faith or to have my faith strengthened, and that someone like my mother didn't, so she died. That's the thing is, you're building up Christ's church. You're taking on, you're adding to the sufferings of Christ, and so your job is to suffer. It's the Buddhist thing, it's life is suffering. Your job is to suffer. This is what you're going to do. So.
The truth, and we have the word of God, and we have reason, we have logic, and ostensibly God gave us these things so that we can investigate the world. Then why do Christians disagree, and not just disagree, but often so viciously when they disagree? This is roughly the challenge brought by Michael Beverly, and Chris Tate's going to respond. But Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Braxton. I appreciate the invite. And
Tomorrow, if I do a stream, it'll be this one. We'll watch this one together.
Chris, nice to meet you, and I'm glad that you're here, and I look forward to a very engaging and friendly discussion.
Yeah, and Chris, let's just go ahead and say hi to you. Chris represents not only his own channel, Theoapologetics, but he's also the face of the Rethinking Hell community. And so you'll want to check out both of those channels, Rethinking Hell and Theoapologetics. I think Theoapologetics and Chris's books are linked in the description, so you can go check that out. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm a little distracted by the 3 different levels of Zoom each of our respective cameras have. You're like the farthest away, then I'm halfway, and then Michael's in the middle. So hopefully that doesn't distract people as much as it's distracting.
That is what the grifting apologist Jonathan Pritchett wanted, and so that's the way we're going to do it. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to, by the way, I hope you understand this is a comedy routine, but I'm going to hand it over to Michael Beverly, who, because he's bringing the challenge here, the concern that he sees, we need to hear him lay that out before Chris can respond. So, Michael, just take whatever time you need to kind of flesh this out.
Okay, thank you, Braxton. So the question here is, if Christians are filled with the Holy Spirit of truth, and I don't think there's any disagreement among all of us that such verses as in John 16, where when He, the Spirit of truth, comes, He will guide you and be He will impart truth and faith and the Comforter, the Paraclete. Like, so we're not really discussing all the minor details that we could get in that discussion of what that actually means, but I think we can have a broad agreement that the Holy Spirit is supposed to do something to distinguish
After this, I'm going to work out and then play Black Myth Wukong.
believers and give them, impart truth and impart guidance and so forth. So if Christians have this.
Oh, I'm sorry, Sandals. I did not see your question. Forgive me. Let's see. What do we got here? Would the speed run to heaven be a good tactic? No, it's never a good tactic. A lot of there's a good portion of apologetics and early theology that's about how that's wrong and evil.
This Holy Spirit of truth and the Bible, logic, reason, and evidence, how can they disagree so quite often viciously, quite often very, well, I mean, the wars have been fought over this, but in general, even in friendly disagreements, there is this idea that why are you disagreeing? I want to quote Chuck Swindoll. Chuck Swindoll, he gave a speech and he said, when I graduated from Dallas Seminary, it was almost beyond my imagination to think that 2 godly individuals could strongly disagree. Now, of course, he later changed, and in the speech that he gave, he changed his mind. Why? Because the facts on the ground necessitated, dictated that he had to change it because Christians don't agree, obviously. But I think the spirit of what his feeling was is one that this is what I'm challenging. Why wouldn't this be true? Why would two godly people that have the Holy Spirit of truth and they have the Bible, why would they disagree? What the answer to that leads to some, what I think, either some paradoxes, or you're going to have to paint yourself into a corner.
Again, I'm comfortable with paradox. I'm comfortable with mystery. I lean very Eastern Orthodox. If they ever get a Eastern Catholic Church here, I will very quickly, no offense to my priest, but I will stop attending my current parish, and I will definitely go to the Eastern Orthodox Church if they ever put one here in the Valley. Honest truth. Eastern Orthodox Catholic, by the way, not Eastern Orthodox, not Greek Eastern Orthodox. So, Eastern Catholic Church, I will gladly attend if they ever have one here. There is a Greek Eastern Orthodox Church here, but I'm Catholic. It's a thing. Let's not worry about the distinctions right now. Let's just enjoy this.
Now,
for 4
I'm not
minutes.
talking about disagreeing on where we should go to lunch or whether we should give to a certain ministry or whether we should, do certain things in our life. Like, should we put a swimming pool in the backyard? Is that a good use of money, or would God rather us give that money to the poor? Those are different issues than the things I'm talking about. I'm talking about doctrinal things that may or may not have to do with salvation, but certainly have to do with living your life in communion with God. Because if we agree that God would want us to live in truth, if God would want us to believe true things, then these issues would matter. We would not be living a maximally good life if we are having rock and roll
Why do we need to live a maximally good life?
music in our church if God only wants organ music? People used to argue about whether anything outside of Scripture should be sung in church, or whether electric guitars are allowed, or whether women should cover their hair, or whether women should preach. And this could go on and on with all kinds of issues, from homosexuality to how to interpret Revelation.
1 more minute, guys, and then we're going to go to the music. I'll do an outro, and then we'll do the music. What was that? What do you mean, sandals? I'm having a little trouble answering you. It says, I don't know what those. I didn't know that those are different things. I thought both would have been kind of non-Catholic. What do you mean? Ask the question again so I can give you a full response before we call it a night. And Michael, I look forward to our personal one-on-one interaction when we finally get to do it. I will send you an email letting you know when I'm available. Unfortunately, the current job that I have, the schedule changes every week. But things are looking up, so that might not be, I might not be in that situation too much longer. All right. Sandals, you didn't respond back. Oh, there you go. I thought Eastern Orthodox and Eastern Catholic Orthodox were saying no. So, church history. Let's go back. The church used to be one church, but there were many churches in the one church. Some people like to say there were 12. It doesn't matter. The point is, by the end of the day, there were 5. The 5 major ones were Alexandria, Rome, Jerusalem, Constantinople, Antioch. There we go. And so that's the original church. Each church has its own. Each one of these sees has its own bishop, and they do their own thing. They kind of do their own thing. They have all little minor churches under them. After Chalcedon, after a few other controversies, a minor split, as it's called. There's a major split between the East and the West. So even though both East and West make one Catholic Church, the Greek Orthodox and the Eastern and the Latin Church separate out. The Western Church and the Eastern Church separate out. There's more churches in the Eastern, but there's one main church in the Western. The Western now has more, like, because we're still doing the Catholic thing, we have more things under us. So there are Eastern Orthodox who have returned to the Catholic faith, and they belong to the Eastern Catholic faith. So Eastern Catholic is are the Orthodox that returned to the Latin Catholic Church. So we have a ton of churches. Churches meaning C's, meaning like the large, big church, capital C church. The Catholic Church has like 28 different churches in its church. So, which it gets so complicated that we don't call our churches churches, we call them parishes, because then we're just saying church, 4 or 5 times or 3 times to say one thing. So, but yeah. So there's multiple churches in the Catholic Church. All right, we're beyond the time limit, so I'm going to go to the large screen, give you guys a catch up, give you guys a final message, and then give you the outro. Hello. First off, I'd like to say thank you to Antony Cummins. Go read his books on ninjas; they're awesome. Antony Cummins is a great author. He's a good translator. He has a lot of good stuff on the ninja scrolls and ninjutsu and samurai. Thank you again, Anthony. I appreciate it. I'll send you the link. Michael, I look forward to interacting with you one-on-one. If I somehow, for some reason, get kicked off YouTube, I'm still willing to come on your channel, assuming it won't get you in trouble. And, there are other platforms. I'll find out tomorrow if I'm going to court for the copyright strike or if he's going to let it go. If he's going to let it go, I'm not going to leave that video up. I am going to take the video down and I'm going to download it and I'm going to re-edit it without his portion in there. He doesn't want to be in my video. He doesn't have to be in my video. That's fine. But I want my video back because that was a really good video about the top 3 and worst 3 Bibles. And I want that video on my channel. So I'll just cut out his portion and do the 20 minutes that's me not talking about him. What else? Assuming that my channel's in good standing by tomorrow or the next day, I am going to launch a GoFundMe on here. You'll find out more about my personal life. I might have to give out my real name. I don't know how that works with that. But basically, it'll be for my father's care. It's a fund that's already set up. And it's going to be for groceries, for diapers, for that kind of stuff. And eventually I want to have enough saved up in there that I can put him in a good care facility, preferably assisted living. And I need to do some math still about life expectancy and that kind of thing. So that's coming up. Other than that, I just want to remind you all what I always say. I forgive everyone for everything, so you should do the same. Remember that God loves you and God forgives you. So forgive yourself and forgive anyone else you got to forgive. It doesn't mean go back to them. It doesn't mean get hurt again. It doesn't mean be a sucker. It means forgive them and move on. And forgive your enemies. Forgive your neighbor. And forgive yourself. Love your neighbor. Love your enemy. Love your neighbor. Love yourself. And love God above all. Because God loves you. Have a good night. Hopefully I see you guys tomorrow. Oh, music. I almost forgot the music. You see? Later, Thomas. Later, Sandals. BS, if you're listening, have a good night. Michael, if you're listening, I look forward to interacting with you one-on-one very soon. Where are you?
Just keep pushing through. You're what you got to lose. You're what you got to lose. You're what you got to lose. Just keep pushing through. Cause what you got to lose. 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 won't give up, I won't back down till the line sinks in underneath the deep ground. I won't give up, I won't back down. There's nobody stopping me except for me now. I won't give up, I won't back down till the line sinks in underneath the deep ground. I won't give up, I won't back down. There's nobody stopping me except for me now. And let's be honest, life's a competition. So if I'm going to play, then I'm gonna play to win it. I refuse to sit and rot at a desk all day unless I have a passion I'm working towards, okay? I'd rather be dead on the outside than inside. A bullet to the head than 25 to life in a cubicle alone, just trying to get by, building someone else's dream instead of building mine. If you're hearing me, this is meant to inspire. If you have a dream or if you have desires, a girl in your life that's making you feel that fire, go fight for her man, go die for her man, cause you only have one life, one chance to do it, one chance to prove it to yourself, so don't lose it. You got this, fam, just keep pushing on through it. One day you'll look back so glad you pursued it. Yeah, things are gonna get better real soon.